أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're picking up where we left off from Abu Yazid Tayfur bin Isa al-Bistami. He is one of the greatest walis that we know of, especially in the Naqshbandi Tariqa. It was named after Shah Naqshband, which is Muhammad Bahauddin. However, the Naqshbandi Tariqa before Shahi Naqshband was also known as Tayfuriyya. Tayfuriyya because of Abu Yazid Tayfur ibn Isa. So his name is Tayfur. He's the father of Yazid and he's the son of Isa. That's how we understand this, right? So because of Abu Yazid Tayfur ibn Isa al-Bistami, the Naqshbandi Tariqa used to be called, before Shahi Naqshband, before Muhammad Bahauddin, it used to be called Tayfuriyya because it followed in the footsteps of Abu Yazid Tayfur al-Bistami. Ignore the text being highlighted green here. That's from one of the editors. وَمِنْهُمْ أَبُو يَزِيد Tayfur bin Isa al-Bistami. Among them is Abu Yazid Tayfur ibn Isa al-Bistami. His grandfather was a Magian, right? A Magian being a Majusi, Zoroastrian, the types of people who used to do magic and they believed in like the stars and planets and whatnot, who accepted Islam. So his grandfather was a Majusi who accepted Islam. They were three brothers, Adam, Tayfur and Ali, and all of them were ascetics and devoted worshippers. So all of them were Zuhd and Ubad. And Abu Yazid was the greatest of them in state. It is said Abu Yazid died, so it is said Abu Yazid al-Bistami died in the year 261, and it is also said 234. So there's two different opinions on that. It's not too important, 261, 234. Either way, he died within that time frame. I heard Muhammad ibn Hussein say, he heard Abu al-Hasan al-Farisi say, I heard al-Hasan ibn Ali say, Abu Yazid al-Bistami was asked, by what did you attain this ma'rifah? Ma'rifah means what? Ma'rifah, if you remember, it's knowledge of Allah, knowledge of the Creator. It is the first fard, which is fard upon us, is knowledge of Allah, because without knowing Allah, you cannot testify that He is one. So therefore, the first thing fard upon every single human being is ma'rifah of Allah, to know Allah. But obviously, when the Ahl Sufiya, they say ma'rifah, they mean more than just knowing, deep knowledge, right? Deep knowledge about Allah. So where did you attain this ma'rifah? He said, by a hungry stomach and a bare body, so poverty. I heard Muhammad bin Hussein say, I heard Mansur bin Abdullah say, I heard the uncle of al-Bistami say, I heard my father say, I heard Abu Yazid say. So the uncle of Bistami said that his father heard Abu Yazid, so it must have been Abu Yazid's grandfather. I struggled in spiritual discipline for 30 years and found nothing harder upon me than knowledge. I struggled in spiritual discipline for 30 years and found nothing harder upon me than knowledge and following it. So that knowledge is just ilm and following. من العلم ومتابعته. So I found nothing harder upon me than knowledge and following it. Were it not for the disagreement of the scholars, I would have perished. And the disagreement of the scholars is a mercy. right? Because the Prophet ﷺ says, اختلاف أمتي رحمة, the disagreement of my ummah, and by his ummah we understand that to mean the ulama of the ummah, because when laymen disagree they get into fights, but when scholars disagree, it's just like Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. When they disagree, it gives the layman options. So if you're in a difficult situation, you can follow Imam Shafi'i, you can follow Imam Malik, you can follow Ahmad bin Hanbal. So this is what it means by the disagreement of the scholars is a mercy. It is from a hadith. And except in the pure affirmation of Tawheed, obviously, if they're disagreeing on Aqidah, that's not a mercy. So nobody disagrees on Aqidah, but we do disagree on what? Madahib, on fiqh, on how to pray, how to get wudu, what's fard in wudu. No one disagrees on how to pray and how to get wudu, but the small details of it, we disagree on those. And that's fine. For example, many Shafi'i, when they go to Hajj, because their wudu is nullified from even accidentally touching a lady, many of them will actually follow Hanafiya during tawaf of the Kaaba, for example, because it's very difficult not to accidentally touch a woman. And the Hanafiya, they may, if they're really in a bad situation or a hard situation during traveling, for example, they may follow Imam Shafi'i's fatwa, his ruling on joining or delaying the salah. It is said Abu Yazid did not leave this world until he had memorized the entire Quran, so he was also a hafiz. Abu Hatim as-Sijistani narrated to us, saying, Abu Nasr as-Siraj informed us, saying, I heard Tayfur al-Bistami say, I heard the one known as my uncle say, I heard my father say, Abu Yazid said. Okay, so this Yazid must be a different. Tayfur al-Bistami here must be a different person. So Tayfur al-Bistami here isn't Abu Yazid Tayfur al-Bistami that we're actually talking about, because over here it says Abu Yazid said, come with us. So let's just check the Arabic, make sure that's not a translation mistake. أبو حاتم السجستاني أخبرنا نصر السراج سمعت طيفور البسطامي يقول سمعت المعروف بعمي البسطامي يقول سمعت أبي يقول قال أبو يزيد. Yeah. So what did he say? Come with us so we may look at this man who has made himself famous for sainthood. He was a man sought out and known for Zuhd. So he's a famous wali, right? So people know him as being a wali. So he said, let's go and meet him. Let's go and visit him. Because this is something you do. Obviously, if you hear someone is a wali, you're obviously going to go and visit them. We went to him, and when he came out of his house and entered the mosque, he spat toward the direction of prayer. Abu Yazid turned back and did not greet him. He didn't even give him salam, and said, this man cannot be trusted with a single courtesy, adab of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how can he be trusted with what he claims as in wali? He can't even get a simple adab right, to not spit in the direction of the qibla. How can he be a wali? So again, another way to find, like we said, those fake Sufis, is we look at the adab. If this person is claiming to be a wali, if he's claiming to be someone big, right, or other people are claiming it about him, then we look at his adab. Is he following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the characteristics of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is he following them to the best of his ability? Of course, he's going to make mistakes, that's fine. But is he following them to the best of his ability? Right? If he is, then we can say that is a good sign. But if he's spitting towards the direction of the qibla and things like that, then Abu Yazid says this guy's not a wali. With the same chain, Abu Yazid said, I once intended to ask Allah Most High to spare me the burden of food and the burden of women. So he was about to do dua to ask Allah to save him from the burden of food and the burden of women, as in get rid of the want of food and get rid of the want of women. Then I said, how could it be permissible for me to ask Allah for this when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not ask for it? So he was about to make that dua, and then he thought the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never asked for this, so how can I do this? So these are the sort of things a wali will think about, right? They don't do things without thinking about it. So they've got a filter, right? Everybody's got a filter. That filter is Quran and Sunnah. So you're about to say something, or you're about to do an action. First, it's got to pass through the filter of the Quran, filter of the Sunnah, and then if it passes those checks, then you can go ahead and say it and go ahead and do it. So he passed this through the filter, and it didn't pass through the filter. He said, okay, the Prophet never did this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I did not ask. He didn't make this dua. But then Allah, glorified and exalted, spared me the burden of women, so that I do not care whether a woman or a wall faces me. So even though I wanted to do the dua, I didn't do the dua, but Allah gave it to me anyways. So he didn't have to do the dua. Allah gave it to him anyways. So he said he no longer had what? A lust for women. So he said it didn't matter whether there was a woman in front of me or a wall. Obviously, he's not saying that as an excuse to free mix. Even though he lost this, he still didn't what? Free mix with women. So anyone who says, any person who claims to be a wali and says, oh, I can free mix because I've lost this lust for women. No. You can lose the lust for women, but you still can't free mix. It's haram. I heard the Shaykh Abu Abd al-Sulami say, I heard Al-Hassan bin Ali say, I heard my uncle al-Bistami say, I heard my father say, I asked Abu Yazid. So this chain of narration, I'll have to look into because it's quite interesting, isn't it? It says, Hassan bin Ali heard his uncle al-Bistami. So his uncle is from the same place Abu Yazid is. And his uncle heard his father, which must be his grandfather, say, I asked Abu Yazid. So the grandfather of Hassan bin Ali is asking Abu Yazid about his beginning and his zuhd. Zuhd. What did zuhd mean? That meant asceticism, leaving behind the world, right? But it can also mean the last level of it is locking yourself up, basically. Not that it's a level you want to achieve, but it is a practice that some do. So, and he said, Zuhd has no station. He's saying, Abu Yazid al-Bistami is saying, Zuhd has no station, as in it's worthless, is basically what he's saying, right? فَقُلْتُ لِمَاذَا? I said, why? So this is the first time you'll ever hear this. What do you mean Zuhd is worthless, or it has no station? Not worthless. Worthless is a bit too exaggerated, but it has no station. It isn't a maqam. So he said, so it was asked, obviously, why would you say this? He said, because I was in Zuhd for 3 days. Abu Yazid al-Bistami says he was in Zuhd for 3 days. And when the 4th day came, I came out of it. As in khalwa. What we know nowadays as khalwa, where you go into a room and you only worship Allah. He said, I did it for 3 days. On the 4th day, I left. On the 1st day, I renounced the world and what is in it. I got rid of the world from my heart. On the 2nd day, I renounced the hereafter and what is in it. On the 2nd day, I got rid of the want of Jannah, so I know he's no longer worshipping to attain Jannah. He's no longer worshipping because he's afraid of Jahannam. That's what it means by renouncing the Akhirah. And on the 3rd day, I renounced everything other than Allah. So on the 3rd day, I renounced everything else. So what's left? Only Allah. And when the 4th day came, nothing remained. So he goes, for me, except Allah. So he left. I slept and I heard a caller saying, O Abu Yazid, you do not have strength when you are with us. What this means, I still don't know. I said, this is what I want. So Abu Yazid is replying, I want this, right? Then I heard a caller saying, you have found, you have found. So this is why Abu Yazid says, 4 days I was out. So 3 days I was out on the 4th day. On the first day, he gave up the world. Second day, he gave up the hereafter. Third day, he gave up everything other than Allah Ta'ala. On the fourth day, he was out of Zuhd after hearing a caller call out to him and say, you do not have strength when you are with us. It was said to Abu Yazid, what was the hardest thing you encountered in the path to Allah? He said, so before we actually move on to this is also one of the reasons, right? So I don't know if this is the reason, but for example, if you know anything about the Naqshbandi tariqah, the Naqshbandi tariqah doesn't have khalwa, where you lock yourself up in a room. In fact, you're allowed to do khalwa in the beginning of Naqshbandi tariqah just to remove yourself from the world a little bit. But for a person who's been in the Naqshbandi tariqah for a while, there is no khalwa. In fact, quite the opposite. One of the foundational principles of the Naqshbandi tariqah is the opposite of khalwa, where you go about your business with people, right? In the markets, you do your business, you do everything. But even though physically you're with people, inside spiritually, you're trying to be with Allah. So you're being with the creation, but even though physically you're with the creation, spiritually you're with Allah. So this is the idea behind it. So it's possible that the Naqshbandi foundation is actually from Abu Yazid al-Bistami here. It was said to Abu Yazid, what was the hardest thing you encountered in the path to Allah? He said, it cannot be described. I can't describe it in words. So it was said to him, what was the easiest thing your nafs encountered from you? So what is the lightest thing you put your nafs through? Remember, the whole idea of tasawwuf is what? Is to go against your nafs. Fight against it. Whatever your nafs wants, do the opposite. Right? So he says, what was the easiest thing you put your nafs through? He said, as for that, yes, like I can answer it. I called it to some acts of obedience and it did not respond. So I told my nafs, come on, let's worship. And it didn't respond. It didn't want to. So how did he punish? So I withheld water from it for a year. He didn't drink water for a year. This is the lightest thing he's put his nafs through, right? Abu Yazid said, for 30 years, I have prayed while my belief about myself at every prayer is as though I were a Magian wanting to cut my belt of disbelief. Belt here, it says in Arabic, zunnar. Zunnar used to be what dhimmis, so non-Muslims living in Muslim lands, were required to wear a belt to distinguish themselves, so that Muslims knew that they were dealing with a dhimmi. Why is this important? It's because sacred rulings, sharia, the rulings change when you're talking with or when you're doing trade with a dhimmi. So that's why it's important to know if somebody's a dhimmi or a Muslim in Muslim lands. Obviously, we don't have that nowadays. You can't tell. I heard Muhammad bin Hussein say, I heard Abdullah bin Ali say, I heard Musa bin Isa say, my father said, Abu Yazid said, if you see a man who has been given marvels, so karama, until he rises in the air. So let's say a person claims he's a wali and in fact he flies in front of you. He literally starts levitating. Do not be deceived by him. So don't believe the karama. Don't be deceived until you look at how you find him regarding commands and prohibitions. So is he following halal and haram? Forget about him flying. He can fly all the way to the moon if he wants. Is he following halal and haram? Preserving the limits and fulfilling the sacred law. Is he following sharia? If he's not following sharia, don't even bother. He could fly as much as he wants. You ignore him. Why? Because what's going to happen when Dajjal comes, right? Is Dajjal not going to have superpowers, right? He's going to tell the sea to go back. The sea is going to go back. He's going to gather fish. He's going to split a person in two, bring them back together. He's going to outwardly rise the dead. Some say that he's not actually rising the dead, it's jinns going inside. But either way, on the outside, on the outset, it's going to look like he's rising the dead. So imagine you see this, right? You have to remember, it doesn't matter. He could fly if he wanted. But is he following Sharia? And obviously Dajjal isn't going to be following Sharia. Similar to other awliya, as in pretenders of being awliya, they could fly all they want. They could do, we call this istidraj, right? Istidraj. They can fly, they can maybe walk into water, walk on water, walk into fire and not be harmed and whatnot. We don't care about this. We look at whether they're following Sharia or not. If they're following Sharia and they have karamas, okay, that's good. But if they're not following Sharia, then it doesn't matter what they're doing. My uncle al-Bistami related from his father that he said, one night Abu Yazid went to the frontier to do dhikr of Allah. So the wall of the castle or a fortress. Glorified be he upon the wall of the fortress. So the fortress, usually a fortress will be where? On the frontier, so at the border of a neighboring country. And he was on the wall, and so he sat there to do dhikr. He remained until morning without dhikr. So he sat to do dhikr, but he didn't do dhikr. I asked him about that, and he said, I remembered a word that had passed upon my tongue in my youth, so I felt ashamed to do dhikr of him, glorified and exalted. So this is the amount of embarrassment, shame he has for something he said in the past. So what did he do? He might not have done dhikr, but you can bet that he did tawbah. So he remembered something that happened in his youth, and even though it was years ago, he felt ashamed to do dhikr of Allah. So this is what? Haya. So he had too much haya to do dhikr. Do we take this as an example? No. We do dhikr regardless. This is what we say a spiritual state. Right? He couldn't do dhikr even if he wanted to. That was a spiritual state which came upon him at that moment. It's not he's making up excuses. If he was making up excuses, he wouldn't have gone in the first place to go and do dhikr. But he went to do dhikr, and then what happened? A spiritual state came upon him. This state was the state of what? Embarrassment. So sometimes, especially those people who are more prone to having these spiritual states, people are very different. Human beings, even though we're all humans, we're all very different in how we accept and how we deal with spirituality. So some people, they're like bottomless wells. Like even though they'll be inside nur all the time, they can handle that. So nothing happens to them outwardly. They can handle it. You'll never hear them fainting. You'll never hear them crying. As in, they'll cry at night, but not due to a spiritual reason, but because of their sins and whatnot, because of their dua. So some people, they'll be like very deep. Some, they'll be the opposite. They'll be very sensitive to things like barakah and nur and whatnot. So when they enter a majlis of dhikr, you'll see them, they'll faint, they'll shout, or they'll lose their mind and whatnot. This is just what? Capacity of people. It doesn't necessarily mean one person's better than the other. They're just different in how they handle these spiritual states. So everyone's different. So, and also two spiritual states are almost never identical. And so two people who are a bit more sensitive to these spiritual stuff, they could both go into the same dhikr, and they could both, one of them can faint, one of them can fly, basically. Not fly, but you know. So it could be the opposite. One of them might start spinning and the other one might faint, which is two complete opposites of reactions to the spiritual side of things. So these things can happen. Now, if a person does this on purpose, like we said, start spinning or pretend to faint or just scream without actually it being natural, as in not in their hands, the awliya, especially the Naqshbandi tariqa's awliya, have said that this is immediate shirk. To pretend, or this is immediate riya, to pretend that you are at a level or you are having some spiritual thingy which you're not. So all any fake stuff, immediate riya. And they say if you are in the Naqshbandi tariqah and you do this, you are immediately expelled from the Naqshbandi tariqah. So the Naqshbandis, they're very strict on this, in the sense that if you do scream when it was in your control, so you screamed on purpose, or you pretended to faint when it wasn't real, you are immediately expelled from the tariqah. So all this fake nonsense is not allowed. So Abu Muhammad Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari. And obviously it's important to mention, now I keep giving examples of the Naqshbandi tariqah because that is what I'm focused on, but the Naqshbandi tariqah, there's many different sheikhs of Naqshbandi tariqah at the moment, so not all of them are the same. Among them is Abu Muhammad Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari, one of the imams of the people. So we are done with who? Abu Yazid Tayfur al-Bistami, which we said again was one of the main sheikhs, one of the main walis of the Naqshbandi order. So if you're going to go from Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, because the Naqshbandi order goes from Abu Bakr radiallahu anh to Shah Naqshband and further, and also it goes from Ali radiallahu anh. That's why it's called the golden chain, because all tariqas will go through Ali radiallahu anh, but it's only the Naqshbandi tariqa which will also go through Ali radiallahu anh, but it'll also come from Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, so it's known as the golden chain. So Abu Yazid al-Bistami is one of the main ones, and in fact before it was called the Naqshbandi tariqa, the Naqshbandi order, it was called the Tayfuriyya order. And then after him, it was called the Khajiganiya. So when we get to those names, I'll list them inshallah. Among them is Abu Muhammad Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari. So he's also one of the great walis, one of the imams of the people. In his time, he had no equal in conduct and wara', and he was a man of miracles. So he had many karamat. So again, like we said, the reaction to some people to spirituality is different, and also some awliya are more prone to having what we say miracles, but obviously miracles are only for prophets, so we like to say marvelous acts or karamas, just immediate from Arabic transliteration. So some awliya will have more karamas than others. But it's well known and well documented from the sayings of the awliya that the walis which have more karamas are usually a lower rank than the walis which don't have as much karamas. So in our eyes, in the layman's eyes, it might be the opposite. The wali with the most karamas should be more higher, right? Because we like to think of it like a video game. The higher level you are, the more miracles and the more karamas you can do. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. And if you look at what we say after the names, we always say, what? قَدَّسَ اللَّهُ أَسْرَارَهُمْ or سِرَّهُمْ. أسرارهم or sirrahu, where we say, may Allah sanctify their secret. The whole idea of being a wali is to be a secret wali. And if you end up becoming famous because Allah makes you famous, then fine. But the whole idea of a wali is to not chase fame. So those which have so many karamas, usually that's a sign of what? Of being a lower rank. Now obviously I'm talking about these things, but it's not my job to list and rank people and say, oh, you know, Dhunnun al-Misri is above Abu Yazid and Abu Yazid is above this person. But it's just what the walis say themselves. So among them is Abu Muhammad Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari, one of the imams of the people. In his time, he had no equal in conduct and wara'. And he was a man of miracles, karamas, we can say. What could I say? Karama. Karamat. Mat would be better. He met Dhunnun al-Masri in Mecca. Remember we talked about Dhunnun al-Masri? He met him in Mecca in the year he went out for the pilgrimage. He died, as it is said, in the year 283, and it is also said 273. So either 283, 273 is when he passed away. He met who? Dhunnun al-Masri in Mecca. Sahl said, I was 3 years old, and I would get up at night to watch the prayer of my uncle. It should be prayer of my uncle Muhammad ibn Sawar, who used to pray at night. So he had a pious uncle, and when he was 3 years old, he would get up at night just to watch him pray. He would sometimes say to me, "Oh Sahl, go sleep, for you have distracted my heart." So even though he's 3 years old, he would get up and watch his uncle pray, and his uncle would tell him to go back to sleep because he's distracting him. As you can imagine, a 3-year-old probably isn't just sitting still. I heard Muhammad bin Hussein say, I heard Abu al-Fatih Yusuf bin Umar al-Zahid say, I heard Abdullah bin Abdul Hamid say, I heard Abdullah bin Lu'lu' say, Lu'lu', I believe this needs that, Lu'lu' say, I heard Umar ibn Wasil al-Basri narrate from Sahl bin Abdullah, who said, again a long narration, who said, my uncle said to me one day. So whose uncle? Sahl bin Abdullah. Sahl bin Abdullah's uncle said to Sahl, will you not do dhikr of Allah who created you? I said, how should I do dhikr of him? What a smart child, right? So his uncle says, won't you do some dhikr? So the child asks, how should I do it? Okay, so Sahl bin Abdullah is asking, how should I do dhikr? So he's going to get from his uncle what? Wird. He said, so his uncle said, say with your heart. So not with your tongue. Say with your heart when you turn in your clothes 3 times without moving your tongue. So when you turn in your clothes, I'm not sure what this means. I've not been able to figure it out. So inshallah, someone maybe who has an idea can write in the comment section or whatnot. When you turn in your clothes, what that means. It must be an Arabic saying, but I've not been able to figure it out. Whenever you turn in your clothes, I think that might just mean whenever you move. Say without moving your tongue. So this is a what? This is qalb dhikr. Dhikr of the qalb. And this is what the Naqshbandis do. Right? Say, Allah is with me. Allah looks at me. Allah witnesses me. Without moving your tongue. This is important. So the way you do qalb dhikr is you put your tongue up to the top of your mouth. So behind your teeth. Up to the top of your mouth. And you don't move your tongue. You focus your whole body to your heart. And you focus your heart on Allah Ta'ala. And that's how you do your dhikr of the heart. So you say, Allah is with me. Allah looks at me. Allah witnesses me. So Sahl is saying, I said that for 3 nights, then I told him. So I told him that I've done it for 3 nights. He said, say it 7 times every night. So he increased it from 3 to 7. So this is classic wird. Yeah, wird is what? You do what your shaykh tells you, and then when you're done, you tell him, and then he increases the number, or he gives you a different dhikr. So I said it. So he did it 7 times. Then 7 times. Then I informed him.
Abiler futbol izliyor ama hiç başka bir şey izlemiyor.
Sen futbol izlemek istemiyor mu? Şu an bir şey yapamam. Kusura bakma. Oldu, hadi görüşürüz. So it was increased to 7 times, so he was doing it 3 times, then it was increased to 7 times. Then I informed him, and he said, so after I've done it for 7 times, I informed him, and then he increased it to 11 times. So I said that, and sweetness entered my heart. So he felt that sweetness entered his heart. When a year had passed, my uncle said to me, preserve what I have taught you, and remain constant upon it until you enter the grave. So this is your word for the rest of your life, for it will benefit you in this world and the hereafter. I continued upon that for years, and I found sweetness from it in my inner secret. Then my uncle said to me one day, O Sahl, how can one disobey Allah when Allah is with him, looking at him, and witnessing him. Beware of disobedience. So this is the idea behind that dhikr. What was the dhikr? Every time you move, every time you turn in your clothes, whatever that means, I'm not sure. Remind yourself, Allah is with me, Allah is witnessing me, Allah is looking at me, right? And when you do this, what happens? You stop sinning, because you're always reminding yourself that Allah is looking at me, Allah is watching me, Allah is with me. So he says what? Beware of disobedience. So Sahl is saying, I used to remain alone, and they sent me to the school, to madrasa. I said, I fear my attention will be scattered. So he used to just do dhikr, from what I understand, and his parents want to send him to madrasa, but he's afraid that he'll be distracted. So because he was doing what? He was worshipping, he's afraid that he's going to be distracted from his worship, but he's still a child. But they agreed with the teacher that I would go to him for an hour, learn, then return. So they found a middle ground. They said, okay, son, you go to madrasa for an hour and then you can carry on worshipping. I went to the school and memorized the Quran when I was 6 or 7 years old. So this is how young he is. And he's saying, I'm afraid of going to school because I might forget about Allah. So this is how young he is. Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari. Okay, so he memorizes the Quran. So he does go 1 hour every day. He goes to madrasa and then he memorizes the Quran when he's either 6 or 7. And then he says, what? I used to fast perpetually. I used to just fast every single day. Not Mondays and Thursdays, just every single day. And my nourishment was barley bread until I reached 12 years of age. So what is he trying to say here? Why is he explaining this? Right? He's trying to say this is all from what? From that dhikr which I was taught. From who? From his own uncle. His uncle taught him this dhikr. At 3 years old, he was already waking up with his uncle and watching him pray. So he was taught this dhikr at a young age, and he carried on with this dhikr. And this dhikr led him to what? Memorizing the Quran 6 at 7, fasting every single day at 12. When I was 13, a question occurred to me. So he had a question. Obviously, when you reach the age of 13, now your brain is kicking in, right? Your brain has developed. Now you come up with questions. You start asking things. A question occurred to me, and I asked my family to send me to Basra to ask about it. Okay, so he's literally telling his family, I need to go and get the answer to this question. I went to Basra and asked its scholars, but none of them clarified it for me. Okay, so they never gave him a satisfactory answer. So I went to Abadan, to a man known as Abu Habib Hamza bin Abdullah al-Abbadati. I asked him about it, and he answered me. And because he answered him, I stayed with him for a time, benefiting from his words and adopting his manners. So he's found himself a what? A sheikh, a guide. So he went around, he asked this question to all the scholars that he could. None of them gave him a satisfactory answer. But when finally somebody was able to give him a satisfactory answer, he stayed with him and he adopted his manners. Then I returned to Tustar and limited my nourishment to buying with 1 dirham barley, which would be ground and baked for me, and I would break my fast at dawn each night with 1 ounce plain, without salt or relish. So just simple bread. 1 ounce of bread. That dirham would suffice me for a whole year. Then I resolved to fast 3 nights and break 1. Then 5, then 7, then 25 nights. And I remained upon that for 20 years. Then I went out traveling in the land for years. So as you can see, he can't get enough. He's always what? Increasing. Right? Then I went out traveling in the land for years. Then returned to Tustar and used to spend the whole night in prayer. Okay, so this is the levels he's reached. Fast consecutively, break your fast every 25 days, go out traveling, return, spend the whole night in prayer. I heard Muhammad bin Hussein say, I heard Abu Abbas al-Baghdadi say, I heard Ibrahim bin Firas say, I heard Nasr bin Ahmed say, Sahl bin Abdullah said, every act the servant does without following a guide, whether obedience or disobedience, is a nourishment for the nafs. And every act he does by following a guide is torment upon the nafs. Why? Because the nafs hates So this can be answered in a couple of ways, but the nafs, it hates following orders, right? So even when you pray by yourself, right? So your sheikh never told you to do tahajjud, for example, but you go ahead and you do tahajjud anyways. How is this nourishment for the nafs, right? The idea behind this is that because you did it from yourself, right? You might feel good inside. You might be like, oh, look at me. I'm doing tahajjud and nobody told me to do tahajjud, right? I'm getting up and doing tahajjud. Look at me. I'm a great person now, right? So there's the chance that your nafs is going to find a peace for itself there, right? But when your sheikh tells you, you need to get up every night and do tahajjud, your nafs is going to hate this, right? You get up every night. Your sheikh told you, get up every night and do tahajjud, so you're getting up every night and doing tahajjud. Your nafs is going to absolutely hate that, because your sheikh has told you. So what's your nafs going to start saying? Oh, it's not fard. Why is my sheikh making me do this? I don't have to do this every night. It's going to start finding excuses. But that is perfect, because that means your nafs is absolutely hating what you're doing. You should carry on. You should carry on. Because remember, the nafs and the shaitan, our two enemies in this world. Have to do it, go completely the opposite of the nafs. So that was who? Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari. So we talked about who? Abu Yazid Tayfur al-Bistami. We talked about the Tayfuriyya, which is also the Naqshbandiyya tariqa. And then we talked about who? Sahl bin Abdullah al-Tustari. And now Abu Sulaiman Abdul-Rahman ibn Atiyya al-Darani. Among them is Abu Sulaiman Abdul-Rahman bin Atiyya al-Darani. Daraya is a village among the villages of Damascus, right? So he was from Dimashq. He died in the year 215. I heard Muhammad bin Hussein say, I heard Abdullah bin Muhammad al-Razi say, Ishaq bin Ibrahim bin Abi Hassan informed us saying, I heard Ahmad bin Abi al-Hawari say, I heard Abu Sulaiman say, whoever does well in his day is rewarded in his night, and whoever does well in his night is rewarded in his day. We'll break that down in a second. And whoever is truthful in leaving a desire, Allah removes it from his heart. And Allah Most High is too generous to punish a heart that a desire was with a desire that was abandoned for him. So, whoever does well in his day is rewarded in his night. If you stay away from sins all day, Allah will reward you at night with what? Not with ice cream or anything like that. He's going to reward you with worship. If you stay away from sins all day, Allah will allow you to worship at night. And whoever does well in his night, you've stayed away from sins all night, you've worshipped, Allah will reward you during the day. He'll protect you during the day. Your day will go good. And whoever is truthful in leaving a desire, Allah removes it from his heart. Whoever sincerely wants to remove something from their heart, Allah will allow him to remove it from their heart. But you've got to be sincere, right? It's no fake stuff. And Allah Most High is too generous to punish a heart with a desire that was abandoned for him. So let's say, what could a desire be? A desire could be something in that moment, right? You felt like eating a chocolate or a biscuit or whatever, right? But you said, you know what, I'm going to do the opposite of my nafs. Right, I'm going to do the opposite of my nafs. It wants this chocolate, or it wants this burger, or it wants this whatever you like, yeah? You're going to do the opposite and you're not going to eat it. You're not going to drink it, whatever it is, right? Even though it's completely halal for you, right? This is going against the nafs. So this is in that moment a desire. But then a desire can also be something that you've aspired for, you've wanted for a long time, right? For example, you might have wanted to become famous, or you might have always wanted to own a McLaren or a Lamborghini or whatever car, right? You wanted to own that nice car, you wanted to have that big house, right? It's a desire. But you come to realize this is a desire that the nafs wants. I don't need a huge house, I don't need a luxury car. So if you give this up genuinely for the sake of Allah, you ask Allah, Ya Rab, take this away from my heart. I no longer want to want a big house. I don't want to want a luxury car. If you genuinely want to remove this desire, Allah will allow you to remove this desire from your heart. With this chain, with the same chain, he said, when the world settles in the heart, the hereafter departs from it. You either have the world in your heart or you have the hereafter in your heart. You can't play both. You can't have both. So either you love this world, which means you don't love the akhirah, or you love the akhirah, which means you don't love this world. It can't be both. I heard the Shaykh Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulami say, I heard Hussein bin Yahya say, I heard Ja'far bin Muhammad bin Nusayr say, I heard al-Junayd say, Abu Sulaiman al-Darani said. So that means Abu Sulaiman al-Darani and Junayd al-Baghdadi were contemporaries. So Junayd al-Baghdadi said, Abu Sulaiman al-Darani said, sometimes a subtle notion from the notions of the Qawm falls into my heart for days, and I do not accept it except with two just witnesses, the book and the Sunnah. Now what does that mean? Sometimes a subtle notion from the notions of the Qawm. Qawm here means, in the context of Sufis, just means Sufism, right? So he says, sometimes in my heart I feel like doing something which is asceticism, like I feel like maybe going to a cave, or maybe I want to worship all night, or something like that, right? So something good, generally. But I do not accept it except with two witnesses. What? The book and the Sunnah. So whatever falls into my heart, I don't immediately go ahead and do it. I check, is this a bid'ah? Right? So he checks it with the Quran, he checks it with the Sunnah, and then if it is muwafiq, if it's in line with Quran and Sunnah, then he goes ahead and he does it. If it's not in line with Quran and Sunnah, then he ditches it, even though it might feel like it's a worship, right? Whatever the book and the Sunnah. So Abu Sulaiman said, I shared this in the group chat. Abu Sulaiman said, the best of deeds is opposing the whims of the Nafs, going completely against the hawa of the Nafs. Khilafu hawa nafs. Yeah. وقال, and he said, everything has a sign. لكل شيء علم. Everything has a sign. And the sign of abandonment, right? Tarkul baka, is to stop weeping, is leaving weeping. If you stop crying, then this is a sign, right? Everything has a sign. It doesn't mean it's 100% like this, but it's a sign that either you've abandoned Allah or Allah's abandoned you, right? If the day you stop crying. He said everything has rust, and the rust of the light of the heart is fullness of the stomach. If your stomach is full, then the light of your heart, the light of the heart is rusty. He said everything that distracts you from Allah, whether it's family, wealth, or child, is ill-omened for you. Okay? What does that mean? Should you not have children? Should you not have a wife? That's not what it means. That means even though you're taking care of your wife and your children, it still shouldn't distract you from Allah. So he's saying you can do them both. You can take care of your kids, you can take care of your wife, and you can still not be distracted from Allah. Abu Sulaiman said, one cold night, I was in the prayer niche. Prayer niche being like, I believe, similar to the mihrabs we have now. One cold night, I was in the prayer niche, and the cold disturbed me. So I hid one of my hands from the cold while the other remained extended. So he's doing dua, and it's cold. So he puts one of his hands away, okay? But the other's extended. And then sleep overcame me. He fell asleep. And a caller called, "Oh, Abu Sulaiman, we have placed into this one what reached it. And had the other one been exposed, we would have placed into it also." So he's saying, I fell asleep and I heard somebody tell me, the hand which was extended, we put in it some things, right? But the one which wasn't extended, nothing came into it. So I pledged to myself that I would not supplicate except with my hands uncovered, whether the time was hot or cold. Abu Sulaiman said, I slept through my wird, right? My wird being his dhikr, and saw a huri saying to me, he fell asleep, You sleep while I am being raised for you in the chambers for 500 years. Again, Abdullah bin Yusuf Isfahani informed us, saying Abu Amr al-Julasti informed us, saying Muhammad bin Ismail informed us, saying Ahmad bin Abil Hawari narrated to us, saying, I entered upon Abu Sulaiman one day while he was weeping. And I said, what makes you weep? So he came in one day and he saw him crying. He goes, what is making you cry? Why are you crying? He said, oh Ahmad, how could I not weep? When night falls, eyes fall asleep. Every lover is alone with his beloved. The people of love, as in the people who love Allah, they're alone, right? They spread out their feet, their tears flow down their cheeks and drip in their prayer niches. Then the Majestic One, glorified is He, looks upon them and calls, O Jibreel, before my eye are those who delight in my speech and find rest in my remembrance. I am surely looking upon them in their solitude. I hear their groaning and I see their weeping. So why do you not call out among them, O Jibreel? What is this weeping? Have you ever seen a beloved torment his beloved ones? How could it be fitting for me to seize a people who, when night covers them, plead before me? By myself I swear, when they come to me on the day of resurrection, I shall surely unveil my noble face to them, so that they may look at me and I may look at them. Obviously, we know this from Surah, which Qiyamah, Allah Ta'ala talks about how the Muslims are going to look at Allah Ta'ala. So there he is crying at night time, and he was asked, why are you crying? And he said, how could I not cry? Everybody's sleeping in bed. Everybody's with their wives, with their husbands, right? And the people who love Allah, they're all alone. They're sleeping in the mihrab. They're sleeping in their prayer spots. And they're crying. He goes, how can I not cry? Allah Ta'ala loves the people who cry. So that's why he's all alone crying at night. So we're going to stop here, inshallah. So what did we learn in this lesson, right? One, we talked about how the Naqshbandi Tariqah was called Tayfuriyya before it was called Naqshbandiyya. And we also learned, obviously, reading about the high spiritual states of these awliya, it does what? It gives us inspiration, right? No one's telling you to fast for 25 nights straight or 25 days straight, right? And only break your fast once. No one's telling you to keep water away from yourself for a whole year. But the least you can do, right? No one's telling you to go and be Tayfur al-Bistami. No one's telling you to do that. But what you can do at least, right, is understand that you shouldn't be chasing this world. That's the whole idea of reading this book. That's the whole idea of listening to the speech of the awliya. One, and you'll notice this in almost every single saying of theirs, leave the world. Stop chasing the world. One. Once you've stopped chasing the world, the love of akhirah will fill your heart. Second, right, do dhikr of Allah. So empty out your heart from the world, but don't leave it empty. Fill it. Refill it, right? Empty it out from the love of the world and fill it with the love of Allah Ta'ala. So a person should be what? Should be actively in their heart running away from the world. In your actions, you still need to go to work. You need to earn. You need to feed your family, yourself, your kids. But don't have love for it in your heart. You can be rich, but you don't let that enter your heart. But instead you do what? Dhikr, constant dhikr, constant dhikr. And depending on what dhikr you do, and obviously your shaykh will tell you, depending on what dhikr you do, that will have different effects upon you. And this is very well known from those who have walked down this path, that there are certain dhikrs for certain spiritual states. There are certain dhikrs for if someone is sad, someone is lonely, or if somebody is having a good time, if they're going through a relaxed phase in life, if they're going through a hard phase in life, if they're going through grief. There are different types of adhkar that they can do. So we're going to stop here, inshallah. وآخر دعوانا إن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.